And let's start there. There's a lot of news to get to, and we will here over the next 2 hours. But let's start with Senate President Mitch Carmichael. Mitch, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Hoppy. Good
you
morning.
You are. I mean, everybody else is cranky and all like angry and tired. And you're just like, hey, what's going on? Like nothing's happening.
Hey, we delivered out of the Senate yesterday. Big work and great accomplishment for the people of West Virginia. I'm so proud of that Senate and all the work that we've done.
You passed, let's see, it was 20 to 14.
Yes.
20 to 14, so 2 Republicans did not vote for the plan. A $4.102 billion budget plan that, according to you all, is what the revenue is expected to be collected next year. So you did hold to your promise of not spending in your budget, spending any more that's projected to take in. So go ahead, pat yourself on the back for a minute on that.
I've got to take a second to do that. Not just me, but the entire Senate of West Virginia, because how often do we hear these, people demean the term politician because they don't live up to their word, they break their pledges, they go against their promises, and we did not do that. Yesterday in the Senate, we made tough votes. And those things are hard to do, but we lived within our means yesterday. The people of West Virginia were delivered from the Senate a budget that spends no more than will be collected next year, according to the governor.
Now, one of the ways it does that, one of the ways is that you spend $50 million less, and I know we'd argue over the semantics, but $50 million less in higher ed, about $50 million less in DHHR, and $70 million less at the state level for public education, even though there's legislation to make it up with the levy rates in the counties. So those are cuts or changes you're comfortable with?
Well, they're necessary. I'm not comfortable with any of it. It's unfortunate. Any family that has to go through a budgeting process and, looks at their revenue and determines that, hey, we just can't take the extra, spend the extra this year. We have to cut back. But let me just put that in context also. But again, you see this, I'm so ebullient and proud and happy about what we did yesterday because we delivered on our promise and we got into the areas that had to be touched in this budget that for years have been off limits. DHHR, public ed, and higher ed. Now, we've touched higher ed in the past, but contextually, Hoppy, we're talking in the total scheme of state spending, less than a 3% reduction. Less than 3%. And you would have thought the sky is falling. And I hate to make those cuts also, but it's responsible people, adults in the room that have to make those decisions.
Senator Mitch Carmichael is with us, the Senate President. The House budget, the budget they approved is $4.24 billion. They have about $137 million in revenue, in additional revenue that comes from broadening the base. Eventually they would lower the rate, but broadening the tax base. And so there's significant difference between the House budget and Senate budget. I know, and your leaders went across, met with the House leaders today. How difficult will it be for House Republicans and Senate Republicans to agree on a budget before the end of the session?
Well, it won't be easy. It's never easy. What I would say is the Senate took a very responsible position, and my understanding is that I have utmost respect for our colleagues in the House, and I know that they'll do a fantastic job putting together their budget. What it appears and what they've passed is that it spends, significantly more than the Senate budget does, and it will require tax increases. And so, the people of West Virginia, I believe, the Senate believes, must live within our means. And that is the proposal that we put forth in terms of the budget. I desperately want to work with our colleagues in the House and have utmost respect for them. But again, it's important, the principle of living within one's means and structurally crafting a budget that does so.
Are you disappointed that House Republicans, because that press conference, I watched the press conference a couple weeks ago, Republican leaders of the House and Senate were there and said, we're going to do a budget, lives within our means, we're going to cut $150 million from the big three. The House budget doesn't do that, the Senate budget does. How disappointed are you in your House colleagues that they didn't do what you all said you were going to do at the press conference?
Well, that's a great question, and I certainly, respect their opinions. I think that we honored our commitment. The Senate honored our commitment, and the thing of it is, it's the right thing to do for the people of West Virginia. So often we hear over and over, now not within Charleston, because everybody wants to raise taxes in the middle of Charleston, or in this Capitol complex. But the people of West Virginia, the hard-working men and women of our state, don't want their taxes raised, want their dollars expended efficiently, and can live like expect the government to live like they do. When they have to make cuts, they do so.
Mitch, you've said a number of times this morning that the Senate took a principled stand on the budget. Okay, I get that. The House has a very different view. I haven't even brought the governor into this equation yet. So if you've taken a principled stand, if they've taken what they believe is a principled stand or an important stand, I don't know where the common ground is. I honestly don't know. I mean, somebody has to give somewhere for even the House and Senate to come up with a budget. I'm not even talking about the governor who's going to veto whatever you come up with.
Yeah.
But
well, and I've said on this show often that we're always willing to compromise for the good of the people of West Virginia. When our colleagues feel that raising taxes are a better way, or that they're unable to make the necessary cuts that are required to deliver a balanced budget without tax increases, I mean, it's a process. It's a democracy. Our principle, our guiding star, is to live within our means. And I believe more than anything that if the people of America, if America looks at it from that perspective, and every other state in the union, you live within your means, this world and this state would be a much better place.
Okay, I'm getting kind of mixed messages here, because you talk about a principled stand, and I get that, but you also say you're open to discussion. So is this like an argument with your spouse where you say, okay, I made my point, but now I'm actually going to go dress shopping with you? I mean, meaning that you've made your point. You've made your point. But you realize that the budget that you have passed will not be the budget of this state.
Well, I'm not willing to accept that at this point. I mean, I believe that the people of West Virginia listening to this show and so forth will hear this message and say, by gosh, somebody finally stood up for what I believe, that we shouldn't raise taxes, that we should live within our means, and that the poorest people in America should not be levied additional taxes. And so I'm hopeful that the people of West Virginia will send that message. The governor believes he's hearing a message from the people that says, hey, I want more taxes, I want more government. And apparently the House believes that that they're hearing the same message. I believe that's the wrong message, and that the people of West Virginia believe differently.
So I guess the question is, after the governor's press event yesterday, is the Senate budget a mayonnaise sandwich or a nothing burger? Which is it? Is it a mayonnaise sandwich or a nothing burger? It's probably the nothing burger, because it holds the line on spending. At least with a mayonnaise sandwich, there's something on the bread. So that might be more of the House budget.
Well,
and I'm talking about the governor's thing yesterday.
I know, he had this crazy.
But I tell you, isn't some of that work? I know you guys are weary of it. I know you guys think that the press runs out and we like slobber over it. But don't you think he's winning this PR battle?
Frankly, I think he's embarrassing himself. And
do you?
And yeah, I really do. I believe the chief executive of one of the greatest states in America uses metaphors like this, and it's just, in my opinion, it's ridiculous. Now, what I will say, I hope the people of West Virginia look at the way the Senate conducts ourselves and the legislature and says these are professional people that have our best interest at heart, and they're taking the job seriously. And I like the governor. I really want to work with him. I have nobody.
You're going to meet with him today.
I hope to meet with him later today, and I will absolutely say the same things that I'm saying to you, to the people of West Virginia. And I think we've developed credibility by doing what we said we would do. Unlike the governor, who's, his chief of staff just before the State of the State said he came on your show and said he was going to cut all this.
That is true.
It is absolutely true. So the people of West Virginia can look at that and say, who's credible in this argument? Who's the credible, believable entity? And I believe at this point, it's the West Virginia Senate.
All right, Mitch Carmichael, who is president of the West Virginia Senate, and I guess, okay, all hyperbole aside, you were in the House, you're Senate, now you're the Senate president. How's this going to play out? I know how you hope it plays out.
Yeah.
I get that. How's this play out?
I believe that ultimately there will be compromise on all sides. That we will, frankly, I hope we get a budget before, Monday. But if not, we'll, adjourn for a while. Cooler heads will prevail. People of West Virginia will weigh in on this issue. It won't cost the taxpayers a dime for us to be in an extended session, because we'll just adjourn, come back, fix it. I hope we get there sooner than that, but this is, Hoppy, this is a fundamental moment in West Virginia's history. We have been decimated in terms of our revenue. We just don't have the money. Now, is there going to be public servants, public officials, elected entities that can make those responsible decisions, or are we going to raise taxes? This is the moment that we determine what government should look like in West Virginia. And for the people, everyone needs to hear this. We're talking about, in total, less than 3% reduction to balance this budget. Now, come on, 3%. You telling me we can't do 3% when we've had the rug yanked out from underneath of us in coal?
Senate President Mitch Carmichael. Mitch, always good to see you.
It's great to see you, and I look forward to working this out.